Ethics of Incest, a philosophical exploration. Incest is one of those topics that really triggers discomfort. Most people react by saying that's just wrong without really thinking about why. But philosophy pushes us to go deeper, to question our instincts, and to look at moral issues through reason, not just emotion. Today, we'll explore the sensitive issue of incest through three different philosophical perspectives. The first is Aristotelian virtue ethics, the second is Christian ethics, and the last is utilitarian ethics.
So let's begin with Aristotle. So Aristotle believed that being moral isn't about obeying strict rules, it's about developing good character. He called this the pursuit of eudaimonia, or human flourishing, which basically means living a full and virtuous life. So in virtue ethics, what matters the most isn't the action itself, but the kind of person it shapes you to be. Virtue is about finding balance, what Aristotle called the golden mean, which is located between extremes. So for example, courage is a balance between cowardice and recklessness. Now, if we apply this to incest, Aristotle might say it disrupts that moral balance. Families are built on roles that depend on trust, care, and respect, like a father protecting his daughter or a brother supporting his sister. When those roles become confused or sexualized, it destroys that balance and weakens the very virtue that holds families together. So with that said, a relationship like that could show a lack of temperance, wisdom, and self-control, which are all traits that Aristotle valued as signs of virtue. So even if the two people consent, virtue ethics would still ask, does this action reflect moral excellence or does it show weakness of character? So from that lens, incest wouldn't lead to human flourishing. It will lead to moral harm both within the individual and the family unit. So what do we learn when we bring these three philosophies together? All three end up agreeing that incest is wrong, but for completely different reasons. Aristotelian virtue ethics says it's wrong because it corrupts moral character and goes against the virtues that help us live balanced, flourishing lives. Christian ethics says that it's wrong because it breaks God's moral law and confuses the sacred rules within a family. And utilitarian ethics says that it's wrong because it causes more harm than happiness in the long run. So what's very interesting is that each shines light on a different layer of morality, character, fate, and consequences. Together, they show that moral issues like incest aren't just about what people do, but about who they are, what they believe, and how their actions affect others. Philosophy doesn't always give us simple answers, but it does help us to see that morality is complex, deeply human, and shaped by both reason and compassion.
Now, let's move on to Christian ethics. So, this looks at morality through the will and the teaching of God. In the Bible, particularly in the books of like Leviticus 18, incest is directly condemned. It's not about breaking a rule. Christian ethics views the family as sacred. They are a structure designed by God for love, nurture, and protection. Within Christianity, there are different kinds of love, which is eros, which is romantic love, philia, which is friendship, storge, which is family love, and agape, the highest form, which means selfless, unconditional love. In the case of incest, these forms of love are confused. Family love, which should be pure and protective, becomes mixed with desire, something that goes against the divine order of God intended for family relationships. Christian ethics would argue that incest violates not only a social norm, but a spiritual law. It turns something meant to be selfless into something that is selfish, driven by personal satisfaction. It also disrespects the idea of the holy body and the body as a temple in a whole, and disrupts the family, which is seen as the foundation of Christian moral life. So, from a Christian point of view, incest isn't just wrong because it causes harm. It's wrong because it disobeys God's design for human relationships and undermines the sacred purpose of family. Now, moving on to utilitarian ethics, which focuses on consequences. Utilitarian is popularized by philosophers like Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. and it asks one main question: does this action produce more happiness or more suffering? If an act increases the overall well-being of the greatest number of people, it is considered morally right. If it causes harm or pain, it's wrong. So how would utilitarian view incest? Even if two consenting adults say they're happy, utilitarian ethics would look at the broader impact. Incest often leads to emotional harm, confusion, guilt, broken families, and social stigma. There's also a biological risk of genetic disorders if children are involved, which can cause suffering not only to those directly involved, but to the family and wider society. Beyond that, allowing incest could break social trust and create instability in how families function, something that would reduce overall happiness in the long run. From this perspective, the harm clearly outweighs the pain. So, utilitarian ethics would conclude that incest is morally wrong because it leads to more suffering than it leads to more happiness, both personally and socially.
This family is known as one of the most inbred in America. The Whitakers consist of 15 siblings, all born to parents who are first cousins. Among them, Ray, one of the brothers, communicates solely through
Ray,
barking and grunting.
Your brother Freddie, do you remember him?
His older sister Lorraine is almost entirely silent and unable to form words. Their younger nephew Timmy and another sibling Betty live with them. Betty, who looks after the family, is the only one among the four who can communicate verbally.
Thank you for watching this video.